December 8th, 1980. John Lennon is shot dead outside his apartment in New York City. But here's what nobody talks about. 11 years earlier, John Lennon saw his own death coming. Not the bullets. Something slower. Something he built himself. In 1969, at the height of his fame, John Lennon bought a 72-acre fortress in the English countryside. 3-meter walls, armed guards, motion sensors, sealed rooms. A Georgian mansion transformed into a bunker designed to keep the entire world out. He called it his paradise. It nearly became his grave. Tittenhurst Park consumed £40,000 a year just to exist. That's $250,000 today, every year. While British taxes took 83% of everything he earned. While the Beatles lawsuit froze his royalties. While heroin ate his days and isolation ate his mind. The walls he built to protect himself became the walls that imprisoned him. This is the story nobody tells. Not about Imagine, though he wrote it here staring at those walls. Not about the Beatles, though their ghost haunted every room. This is about a man who spent a fortune trying to disappear. About the hidden cost of building paradise. About the woman who had to drag him out before that paradise swallowed him whole. John Lennon bought the perfect escape and discovered you can't wall out your own demons. Berkshire, England. 40 minutes from London, but worlds away from the chaos of Beatlemania. Tittenhurst Park sits like a forgotten jewel of English aristocracy. The property was originally built in 1737 by silk merchant Thomas Wood, a classic Georgian mansion with perfect mathematical proportions and absolute symmetry. Over the centuries, it passed through various aristocratic families. Each left their mark. Each added to its grandeur. During the World Wars, it served as a hospital. Soldiers recovered in rooms once reserved for lords and ladies. Then it fell into semi-abandonment. The grounds grew wild. The paint peeled. The gardens returned to nature. In the 1950s, an oil magnate rescued it from decay and restored it to something approaching its former glory. By the late 1960s, it was back on the market, waiting for its next chapter. John Lennon purchases it for £145,000. That's equivalent to more than $3 million today. 26 rooms, stables, staff cottages, an artificial lake with swans gliding across its surface, 72 acres of English countryside stretching in every direction. Yoko is immediately fascinated. She sees artistic possibility in every corner. John sees something else entirely, a place where no one can find him, a fortress against the world that has been consuming him for years. But the numbers don't tell the most important part. What it truly costs to convert a historic mansion into a hermetic refuge when you're one of the most famous men on the planet. The purchase price is only the beginning. The real cost comes later. Day after day, month after month, year after year. Enter through the gravel path. The sound of stones crunching beneath your feet. The Georgian facade greets you with its perfect symmetry. Portland stone glowing in the English light. Tall windows reflecting the sky. Cross through the double oak doors, heavy and ancient, and step into the entrance hall. High ceilings stretch above you. Plaster moldings frame every surface. A curved staircase ascends like something from a dream, its banister polished by centuries of hands. To the left, the main salon. Walls papered in silk. Italian marble fireplace dominating one end. Enormous windows opening onto the garden, flooding the room with light. The library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves holding first editions and leather-bound volumes. An antique desk where John will write songs that change the world. The smell of old paper and history. The formal dining room. Capacity for 14 guests. Crystal chandeliers catching and scattering light. A mahogany table that could have been used at Versailles, polished to a mirror finish. And the gardens. A universe unto themselves. Gravel paths winding through carefully maintained grounds. English roses in carefully planned beds. A lake with swans, its surface reflecting clouds. Stone bridges arching gracefully over water. Victorian statues half hidden among ancient trees, emerging unexpectedly around corners. In summer, everything explodes in green. Leaves creating cathedral ceilings overhead. Flowers competing for attention. Birds filling the air with song. In winter, it becomes Gothic. Bare branches against gray sky. Mist rising from the lake. Almost threatening in its beauty. But now, the other face. Infrastructure. Beneath the elegance lies a coal-fed heating system requiring constant feeding. Workers shoveling fuel into hungry furnaces. Copper pipes running through 3 floors, many original to the building. An antiquated electrical system needing urgent updates, wiring that predates modern appliances. Industrial kitchens in the basement with cast iron ovens and refrigerators the size of wardrobes. The stables still smell of horses long gone. The staff cottages, scattered across the grounds, once housed generations of servants. This is not a house. It's an organism that breathes, consumes energy, and demands attention 24 hours a day. It never sleeps. It never stops needing. To understand why John Lennon needed Tittenhurst, you must first understand the wounds he carried. Wounds that never fully healed. Wounds that shaped every decision he made. Liverpool, 1940. Born to a working-class family during the bombs of World War II. Abandoned by his sailor father Alfred at age 5. The man simply walked away and didn't return. His mother Julia remained present but distant, living with another man, unable or unwilling to raise her son properly. John was sent to live with his Aunt Mimi in a modest house called Mendips. Respectable, comfortable, but not home. Never quite home. And then, when John is 17 years old, just as he's beginning to reconnect with his mother, Julia is killed by a drunk off-duty police officer. Struck down in the street. That wound never closes. He writes about it, sings about it, carries it everywhere. The Beatles catapult him from nothing to everything in less than 5 years. 1963, hysteria in the United Kingdom. Screaming fans. Sold-out shows. 1964, conquest of America. The Ed Sullivan Show watched by 73 million people. 1965, Shea Stadium before 55,000 people screaming so loud the band can't even hear themselves play. They could have been playing anything. Nobody would know. 1966, John says the Beatles are more popular than Jesus. A comment meant to be observational becomes international scandal. Death threats pour in. Records are burned. Radio stations ban their music. The Ku Klux Klan burns crosses at their concerts. 1967, Brian Epstein, their manager and substitute father figure, the man who discovered them and guided their careers, dies of an overdose. Alone in his bedroom. The band is in Wales studying meditation when they hear the news. Another father figure gone. By 1968, John is exhausted. Tours ended because they became unsustainable, because the screaming drowned out the music, because the danger became too real. The studio became a battlefield. Paul wants total creative control. George is fed up with being treated as the junior partner. Ringo temporarily resigns, feeling unappreciated. The magic that once flowed so easily now feels forced, poisoned by ego and resentment. And in the middle of this chaos, John meets Yoko Ono at an art gallery in London. November 1966. An exhibition called Unfinished Paintings and Objects. Yoko is 7 years older. A Japanese-American conceptual artist. Divorced twice. She's everything Cynthia, his first wife, is not. Intellectual. Defiant. Unconventional. Completely indifferent to his fame. She treats him as an equal, not as a Beatle. She challenges him. Confuses him. Fascinates him. John becomes obsessed. They exchange letters. Then phone calls. Then more. Cynthia returns from vacation in May 1968 and finds Yoko in her house, wearing her bathrobe. The marriage ends that day. The divorce follows quickly. British tabloids crucify Yoko. They call her the Dragon Woman, the woman who destroyed the Beatles. Racist caricatures appear. Threats arrive in the mail. John defends her ferociously, alienating himself even further from the band, from his country, from his past life. By 1969, John needs physical and psychological escape. He cannot stay at Kenwood, his previous home in Weybridge. Too many memories lurking in every room. Too many fans gathering at the gates. Too close to the life he's leaving behind. Every corner reminds him of who he used to be. The real motivation isn't luxury. John has money. More money than he can spend. What he seeks is absolute control over his environment. A place where the rules are his and his alone. Where the Beatles can't intrude with their demands and their conflicts. Where the press must stay on the other side of the walls, cameras pointed at stone instead of flesh. Where he can reinvent himself without witnesses, without judgment, without the weight of expectation. Why Tittenhurst Park specifically? First, strategic location. Close enough to London for business, but far enough for real isolation. You can escape, but still remain connected. Second, the walls. 3 meters high. Victorian brick weathered by time, but still solid. A single entrance that can be controlled, monitored, guarded. Third, Yoko wants ample spaces for her art installations. Room to create, room to dream. Fourth, John wants a professional recording studio at home. He's tired of Abbey Road with its schedules and its engineers who don't understand his increasingly experimental vision. He wants to record when inspiration strikes, not when the calendar allows. And fifth, something deeper. John wants to prove he has transcended the Beatles. Paul has his farm in Scotland. George has Friar Park, another grand estate. John wants something bigger, more impressive, more definitive. He wants to win a competition no one else knows they're playing. But there's a contradiction John doesn't recognize. He's buying isolation. And isolation is precisely what he fears most. His entire life has been defined by connection, by collaboration, by the magic that happens when creative minds collide. Now he's going to lock himself away voluntarily, build walls between himself and the world that made him. What he builds will be beautiful, and it will haunt him in ways he cannot yet imagine. When John sees Tittenhurst in spring 1969, the structure is solid but outdated. Heavy Victorian furniture fills every room. Floral wallpaper covers the walls. Dark curtains block the light, creating perpetual twilight. Exactly the opposite of what John and Yoko want. The vision is clear from the beginning. Japanese minimalism meeting Georgian elegance. They will maintain the historic structure, preserve its bones and its proportions, but strip away the Victorian accumulation. The layers of taste from generations past must go. Bright white walls, polished wood floors, low furniture, clean lines, no excessive ornamentation, space to breathe, space to think. Yoko supervises every detail obsessively. She understands space in ways John doesn't. For her, Tittenhurst isn't just a house. It's a statement, a philosophy made physical. Wealth without vulgarity, space without clutter, beauty without excess. Every object must earn its place. The main salon transforms completely over months of work. Workers strip the dark wallpaper. Painters cover everything in brilliant white. They install a white Steinway piano by the window, positioned to catch the light from the gardens. That piano will become iconic. It's where John composes Imagine in 1971. It's the image seen hundreds of millions of times around the world. Yoko opening curtains while John plays. Light flooding in. Music floating out. One of the most iconic images in music history. All created in this room that they transformed from Victorian darkness to minimalist light. But the most ambitious transformation occurs in the stables. John sees their potential immediately. Natural acoustics from the high ceilings and solid walls. Excellent isolation from exterior noise. Sufficient space for large recording equipment. The building that once housed horses will now capture music. He hires Eddie Veal, a respected sound engineer from Abbey Road Studios. Eddie walks through the stables, measuring, calculating, imagining. He confirms it can work. The bones are good, but it needs serious investment. Tens of thousands of pounds. Perhaps more. First, total acoustic isolation. Layers of fiberglass packed into every cavity. Double walls constructed inside the existing structure. Doors fitted with rubber seals that grip tight when closed. Thick double glass in every window. The goal: record at maximum volume without any sound escaping to disturb the countryside peace. Second, environmental control. Industrial climate systems that maintain constant temperature and humidity. Instruments are sensitive. Guitars go out of tune. Drums change tone. Tape machines malfunction. Everything must be controlled. Third, dedicated electricity. Separate lines running from the main supply. Stabilizers to eliminate fluctuations. Backup generators for power failures. A studio consumes energy like a small factory, and any interruption means ruin takes. Fourth, recording equipment. John imports a custom 8-track console, cutting-edge technology for 1969. German Neumann microphones that capture every nuance of voice and instrument. Monitors the size of refrigerators that can shake the walls with bass. The studio is named Ascot Sound Studios. It's completed in 1970 after nearly a year of construction. The cost: between £50,000 and £70,000. More than $1 million in today's money. Worth every penny, John believes. His own kingdom of sound. The landscaper receives contradictory instructions that mirror the contradictions in John's own mind. Yoko wants Zen simplicity. Raked gravel. Minimal plantings. Space and air. John wants to maintain the English character. The roses, the ancient trees, the romantic disorder. The compromise takes months to achieve. They prune extensively, opening sight lines and creating clarity, but keep the dramatic elements. The lake remains with its swans. The statues stay in their hidden spots. The ancient trees continue to guard the grounds. And they add something new: clear sight lines to the perimeter. This is an aesthetic. It's security. From the main windows, you can now see the exterior walls in every direction. No one can approach without being seen. No fan can hide in the shadows. No photographer can lurk unseen. Motion sensors throughout the grounds. Security cameras watching every approach. Intercoms connecting the main house to every gate. Automatic lights that flood the gardens at any movement. Security guards hired from the ranks of ex-policemen, men who understand danger and how to prevent it, patrolling constantly day and night. Equipment shipped from Los Angeles. Acoustic panels from Germany. Furniture from Japan. Italian marble for the bathrooms. Persian rugs for the studios. The best of everything from everywhere, converging on this English estate. Each innovation adds artistic comfort, and each adds to a permanent bill that's only beginning to reveal itself. Living in Tittenhurst Park is like operating a five-star hotel that never closes. The demands are constant. The costs relentless. There is no off switch. Permanent staff numbers between 8 and 12 employees, depending on the season and the projects underway. 2 full-time gardeners work from dawn to dusk. 72 acres don't maintain themselves. The lawn must be mowed constantly during growing season. The roses pruned and fed and protected from disease. The lake cleared of debris and treated to prevent algae. The paths kept free of weeds. The statues cleaned of moss. The trees monitored for disease and damage. In autumn, thousands upon thousands of leaves must be constantly raked. They fall faster than anyone can gather them. It becomes an endless battle against nature itself. A cook, Mrs. Davis, manages the kitchen. She's traditional British, trained in the hearty cuisine of roasts and puddings. Yoko tries to educate her in macrobiotic cooking, the Japanese-influenced diet of whole grains and vegetables. The results are mixed at best. 2 culinary philosophies collide daily. Eventually, they hire a second cook to maintain peace. Cleaning staff arrives 3 times weekly. 2 women working all day. 26 rooms accumulate dust faster than seems possible. Wood floors require constant polishing. The enormous windows, so beautiful for light, show every fingerprint and smudge. A butler manages correspondence, deliveries, and visitors. Packages arrive constantly. Fan mail by the sack. Invitations, gifts, threats. All must be sorted, responded to, filed, or destroyed. Sound technicians remain on call around the clock. At least 2 of them. Equipment from 1970 is temperamental, requiring constant attention. Tubes burn out. Connections corrode. Tape machines drift. Someone must be available when John decides to record at 2 in the morning, seized by inspiration that won't wait for business hours. Security guards rotate through in shifts. For people maintaining coverage 24 hours a day. Monitoring perimeters. Verifying visitors. Patrolling grounds with flashlights after dark. Checking every shadow. Every sound. Personal assistants manage schedules, phone calls, meetings with lawyers and accountants. In 1970, with Beatles legal disputes consuming everyone's attention, they work overtime constantly. There is always another call, another document, another crisis. Calculate conservatively. 8 employees on average. £25 weekly each. £200 weekly total. £10,000 annually just for salaries. More than $50,000 in today's money. But salaries are just the beginning. Fuel and energy consume fortunes. The heating system runs almost constantly for 6 months of the English winter. A Georgian mansion with soaring ceilings bleeds heat through every pore. Cold air sinks from those beautiful high spaces. Warmth escapes through the ancient walls. Electricity bills reach astronomical levels, especially with the studio operational, its equipment humming constantly, its climate control fighting the seasons. Estimates suggest £500 to £1,000 monthly, $10,000 to $12,000 annually, just to keep the lights on and the rooms warm. Structural maintenance is where costs become truly relentless. The roofs span 2,000 square meters of slate tiles, each one hand-cut generations ago. Inspection every 2 years reveals the damage. Storms tear tiles loose. Ice works into cracks. A minor repair costs £2,000. A major one runs 10,000 or more. And there's always something. Victorian pipes corrode quietly behind walls. They develop leaks that stain ceilings and rot floors. They collapse without warning, flooding rooms. Each repair costs hundreds or thousands. And when you fix one section, the stress moves to another. The windows number more than 100. Wood frames that rot in the English damp. Glass that cracks from settling and temperature changes. Replacing each one costs 50 to 200 pounds, and the queue never ends. The gardens require constant investment. Fertilizers and pesticides and tools. The lake requires chemical treatment to stay healthy. The swans need feeding. The ancient trees need attention from specialists who understand their needs. The heating system needs annual service from engineers who specialize in antique equipment. Boilers can fail catastrophically. Replacing one costs thousands. Add extensive insurance to cover this irreplaceable property. Property taxes that recognize its value. Legal fees to manage everything. A palace isn't maintained. It's constantly, relentlessly fed, like a beast that can never be satisfied. Conservative estimate. Tittenhurst consumes 30 to 40,000 pounds annually just to exist. Just to stand still. Before anyone lives there. Before any improvements. Before any luxuries. John tries solutions. He rents the studio when not using it himself. The reputation generates clients eager to record where John Lennon works. Ringo comes to record. George too. Other musicians follow. The studio generates between 5 and 10,000 pounds annually. It helps, but it's a fraction of total operating costs. Like trying to bail the ocean with a teacup. Yoko proposes converting part of the grounds into an artist retreat. They invite filmmakers and poets and performers. Experimental artists from New York and Tokyo and London. The grounds come alive with creative energy. It's culturally exciting. New ideas flowing. Collaborations emerging. The estate becomes a salon for the avant-garde. Financially, it's a disaster. Artists rarely pay. They consume resources instead. Food and drink and heating and attention. Some guests of guests appear without authorization, having heard through artistic grapevines that John Lennon's estate welcomes everyone. The open door becomes a drain. John earns millions with the Beatles, at least on paper. Royalties accumulate somewhere. Investments grow in accounts he barely understands. In practice, his liquidity is complicated beyond measure. Rights are subject to legal disputes that drag on for years. Apple Corps, the Beatles company, bleeds money through mismanagement and failed ventures. Lawsuits consume fortunes in legal fees. And Tittenhurst consumes 30 to 40,000 pounds annually just to exist. John never calculated the infinite cost of keeping the dream alive. He saw the purchase price and thought he understood. He didn't understand it all. It worked for a time, while money flowed, while the machinery ran smoothly, until the world changed the rules. April 1970. Paul McCartney publicly announces the Beatles' separation. What everyone suspected becomes official. Everything collapses. What follows are years of legal battles that drain everyone involved. Paul sues to dissolve the partnership. John, George, and Ringo oppose his methods while agreeing with his goals. Eventually, everyone sues everyone. Lawyers multiply like cells dividing. Royalties are blocked while courts decide who deserves what. Northern Songs, the company holding publishing rights to the Beatles catalog, is sold to investors without John and Paul being able to prevent it. Their songs now belong to strangers. John keeps earning money. Plastic Ono band sells well. Imagine becomes a phenomenon. But financial structures are complex beyond comprehension. Advances against future royalties. Payments that take months to process. Production costs that must be covered up front. And the British government implements aggressive tax policies designed to redistribute wealth. The marginal tax rate reaches 83%. For every pound John earns above a certain threshold, the government takes 83 pence. He keeps 17 pence of each pound he earns. There's a surtax that can raise the burden even higher, to 95% in extreme cases. For someone who earns in pounds but maintains an expensive mansion, the numbers become absurd. If he earns 100,000 pounds in a year, after taxes he keeps 17,000, less than the cost of maintaining Tittenhurst. The math simply doesn't work. John needs to earn 250,000 pounds annually just to maintain Tittenhurst while preserving his basic lifestyle. Add travel. Add maintenance payments to Cynthia and their son Julian. Add the costs of simply being John Lennon. The paradise is mathematically unsustainable. The numbers refuse to cooperate with the dream. And there's another devastating factor that rarely gets discussed: addiction. In 1969 and 1970, John and Yoko develop a serious heroin dependency. It starts as experimentation, artists exploring consciousness. It quickly becomes necessity. The drug that promised freedom delivers chains instead. John loses entire days to haze and withdrawal. Projects are delayed indefinitely. Recording sessions canceled at the last minute. Appointments forgotten. Obligations ignored. In January 1970, they traveled to Los Angeles for treatment. They managed to get clean through grueling withdrawal and therapy. But the process is agonizing. It leaves scars. Addiction doesn't destroy Tittenhurst financially, not directly. It destroys John's capacity to manage anything effectively. His judgment falters. His attention wanders. The details that require constant vigilance escape him entirely. And underneath it all, the deepest emotional break. John was supposed to be free at Tittenhurst. That was the promise. The whole point. Walls to protect him. Space to create. Control over his environment. But he discovers that isolation isn't freedom. It's just loneliness wearing a different costume. Days become repetitive to the point of meaninglessness. Wake late, exhausted despite sleeping. Breakfast in silence. Yoko reading, John staring. Walk the grounds seeing the same trees, the same lake, the same walls. Record without direction, playing the same phrases endlessly. Dinner, television, sleep, repeat. Occasionally, there are visitors who break the pattern, but they're spaced out. Brief interruptions in the monotony. Most of the time, it's just John and Yoko and distant staff who maintain respectful silence. John misses the Beatles' camaraderie despite everything. The way he and Paul bounced ideas off each other, competing and collaborating simultaneously. The way George elevated everything he touched with his guitar and his perspective. The way Ringo found the perfect groove, the heartbeat that made every song live. At Tittenhurst, John is alone in his genius. An isolated genius feels like madness. Thoughts echo in empty rooms. Inspiration has no one to answer it. Brilliance with no witness feels like delusion. The walls he built to protect himself now imprison him. The walls meant to keep the world out now keep him trapped inside. The fortress becomes a cage. In summer 1971, after recording Imagine, John finally speaks the truth to Yoko. We need to get out of here. If they didn't change something, Tittenhurst wouldn't just ruin them financially. It would devour them emotionally. It would swallow their marriage, their art, their sanity. The hidden protagonist of this story isn't John Lennon. It's Yoko Ono, the woman the world blamed for everything. The woman who actually saved him. Yoko comes from money. Real money. Generational money. Her father, Isuke Ono, was a prominent banker in Japan. He rose to become president of the Bank of Tokyo. Her mother, Isoko, comes from a wealthy merchant aristocracy with roots stretching back centuries. Yoko grew up in Tokyo surrounded by servants and properties and privileged education. She learned young how wealth works, how it must be managed, how easily it can be lost. During World War II, her family evacuated to the countryside to escape American bombing. They experienced scarcity and fear, but never true poverty. They retained their status, their connections, their understanding of money. After the war, Yoko studied at Gakushin, a prestigious Japanese university where princes attend. Then she emigrated to the United States, studied at Sarah Lawrence College among American elite, married twice before John. First to Toshi Ichianagi, a classical composer, then to Anthony Cox, an American art promoter and filmmaker. Yoko understands something fundamental that John, raised in working-class Liverpool, doesn't grasp intuitively despite his millions. Money doesn't forgive sentimentality. Wealth evaporates when mismanaged. Real financial survival requires cold, pragmatic, sometimes brutal decisions. You cannot love a house into profitability. You cannot wish away expenses. John fantasizes about Tittenhurst as his personal Xanadu, his permanent artistic retreat, his castle forever. Yoko does different calculations with clearer eyes. She looks at costs and sees them mounting. She looks at income and sees it uncertain. She looks at the trajectory and sees only one destination: unsustainability, collapse, loss. The crucial conversation happens in August 1971. John has just released Imagine. The album is a massive success, climbing charts worldwide. The title song becomes a generational anthem, played at protests and vigils and memorials. It will outlive everyone who hears it. This should be a moment of pure celebration, triumph, victory. But Yoko presents John with a document. Pages of numbers. Detailed accounts of Tittenhurst expenses. How much has been spent in 2 years? How much is projected for the next 5 years? A decade. Income versus expenses. The columns side by side. The gap is unacceptable. The red ink screams from the page. John initially resists. We can cut costs. Fire staff. Simplify. Live more carefully. Yoko's response is patient but relentless. How much staff? Can you maintain 72 acres with 2 gardeners? Does the heating system repair itself? Do roofs heal their own damage? John tries another angle. The studio generates income. We can rent it more often. Charge more per session. Yoko, the studio generates $10,000 a year. We need 30 just to break even. You're going to rent it so much that you can never use it yourself. It becomes a business, not a home. Is that what you want? The truth hurts because it's true. Tittenhurst works as a personal dream only if you close your eyes to financial reality. Only if you refuse to look at the numbers. Only if you believe magic will somehow intervene. Yoko doesn't ignore realities. She can't afford to. She's seen fortunes vanish. She knows what happens when sentiment overrides sense. John, you love this place. I know that. So do I. But love doesn't pay for boilers. Love doesn't repair roofs. Love doesn't keep the heat running through English winters. If we want our art to survive, if we want our life together to survive, we cannot be buried under maintenance debt. We cannot let a building destroy us. The decisions come rapidly after that conversation. Decision 1. Prepare Tittenhurst for eventual sale. Not immediate, but create that option. Clear the legal path. The mansion is already legally under Yoko's name, a tax structure recommended by lawyers. Yoko has decision-making power. She can act when necessary. John resists emotionally. He's invested not just money but identity in Tittenhurst. His post-Beatles self was born here. Imagine was recorded here, in the white room with the white piano. Plastic Ono Band, his most personal and raw album, was recorded here, his primal screams captured in the Stapleton studio. These walls have witnessed his transformation, his struggles, his growth. Letting go feels like abandoning himself. But Yoko is relentless. Not cruelly, pragmatically, with the patience of someone who sees further than the present moment. Decision 2. Immediately reduce non-essential staff. Some employees are let go with whatever severance can be managed. Tasks are consolidated. The butler is released, his functions assumed by personal assistants who already handle too much. One of the sound technicians leaves. Only one remains permanently. The gardens are simplified further. Sections that were pruned weekly are now left to grow semi-wild. It's sold as an aesthetic decision when visitors ask. A return to the natural, embracing wilderness. But it's cost reduction wearing philosophy's mask. The staff houses, once fully occupied with families who served the estate, are now mostly empty. Footsteps echo where children once played. Security guards are reduced to 2 12-hour shifts instead of 3 people rotating. Exhausting but cheaper. John protests. Security is necessary. Fans still appear at the gates. The world still watches. Yoko, fans appeared more when you lived in Weybridge where you were more accessible. Here, in 2 years, how many times has someone actually tried to enter the grounds? The walls work. That's why you built them. You don't need a private army to protect you from people who can't get in anyway. Decision 3. Professionalize the accounts. Hire an external accountant. Not a band friend who might be forgiving. Not a familiar face who might hesitate. A cold professional to audit everything with no emotional investment. They discover absurd expenses no one was monitoring. Staff requesting excessive reimbursements for personal items. Vendors charging inflated prices because they know it's for John Lennon and assume he won't notice. John's own impulse purchases, thousands spent on equipment he uses exactly once then forgets in a corner. The accountant implements a strict monthly budget. Any expense greater than £500 requires advance approval with justification. John hates this. He feels infantilized, controlled. He's worth millions, and now he needs permission to spend? But the numbers don't lie. They never do. Discretionary expenses drop 30% with basic oversight alone. 30% savings just from paying attention. Decision 4. The most dramatic. The most necessary. Move to New York. Yoko proposes this in September 1971. John is genuinely surprised. Leave England. Leave everything he's known. Yoko explains with the patience of a teacher. The United States offers tax advantages that Britain cannot match. Marginal rates are high, yes, but not confiscatory. Not 95%. There are legal structures to protect income. Ways to build wealth rather than watching it drain away. And most importantly, in New York, John can disappear into urban anonymity in ways that are impossible in the English countryside. In Berkshire, you're the only target for miles around. Everyone knows you live here. Press stake out the gates. Fans organize pilgrimages. The curious drive past hoping for glimpses. You're a landmark, a destination. In Manhattan, you're one among 8 million people rushing everywhere. You can walk down the street and no one stops because everyone has somewhere to be. You can sit in a cafe and order coffee like anyone else. No one bothers you because bothering people isn't what New Yorkers do. John considers. New York attracts him powerfully. The artistic scene pulsing with energy. The musicians experimenting in lofts and clubs. The galleries showing work that London wouldn't touch. Greenwich Village, where Bob Dylan and Phil Ochs redefined folk music. Max's Kansas City, where Warhol and his factory blur the lines between art and commerce and fame. CBGB, where punk will soon be born from noise and fury. And honestly, John is tired of England in ways he couldn't have predicted. Tired of the class system that looks down on Liverpool boys no matter how famous they become. Tired of vicious tabloids that mock his wife and his art. Tired of the proper English disdain for anyone who dares to be different. In America, there's more space, more possibility, less suffocating history. You can reinvent yourself because everyone is reinventing themselves. That's what America is for. Love doesn't pay for boilers becomes a mantra. Yoko repeats it when John gets sentimental about the gardens or the lake or the studio where he made Imagine. It's a hard phrase. It sounds cold, but it contains wisdom that John eventually accepts. Some things must be released to survive. Some dreams must end so that life can continue. In September 1971, John and Yoko fly to New York. Initially, it's framed as a temporary visit. They're exploring. They stay at the St. Regis Hotel in Manhattan. They explore the city like tourists. They meet artists, musicians, political activists. And something changes in John. Something fundamental shifts. In New York, he can walk the streets without being devoured by attention. He can sit in Washington Square Park and play guitar with street musicians who don't know who he is or don't care. He can go to the cinema without security escorts watching every shadow. The freedom he sought by building Tittenhurst, he finds by abandoning it. The walls he thought he needed were the problem all along. By the end of 1971, it's clear to everyone. New York will be his home, perhaps forever. Tittenhurst stays behind in Berkshire. Minimal staff maintaining the grounds, keeping the building alive. John still owns it legally, though really Yoko owns it through those tax structures. But emotionally, he's already let it go. The cord is cut. The dream is over. Yoko saved John from his own fantasy. Not with cruelty, with clarity. With love that manifests as honesty rather than comfort. And that clarity, though painful, was liberation. Year 1973. Ringo Starr purchases Tittenhurst for £250,000. Nearly double what John paid just 4 years earlier. But still a fraction of its true value. A bargain for anyone who wants it. Why does John sell cheap? Multiple reasons tangled together. He's selling to a friend, someone who will appreciate it. He needs liquidity for his new American life. And mainly, he wants to cut the cord completely. As long as he owns Tittenhurst, he'll feel tied to it. Its problems will remain his problems. Its demands will continue reaching across the ocean. Ringo has a different vision entirely. Where John sought isolation from the world, Ringo seeks community within it. He's married to Maureen. He has 3 children who need space to grow. He wants a family home with room for everyone. Not an artistic bunker where genius goes to hide. Ringo renovates with enthusiastic 70s style. White walls are repainted in bright yellow, warm orange, sky blue. Japanese minimalist furniture replaced with large, comfortable sofas where children can sprawl. He installs a private cinema for family movie nights. But most importantly, he professionalizes Ascot Sound Studios completely. He hires a professional manager who understands the business. He updates equipment from 8 to 16 tracks, then 24 as technology advances. State of the art, always. The studio is marketed aggressively with a powerful pitch, record where John Lennon recorded Imagine. The Ghost becomes the selling point. It works. Musicians come from everywhere. Judas Priest records there, heavy metal thunder in the old stables. Ozzy Osbourne brings his darkness. Peter Frampton captures his guitar magic. Rates of 80 to 120 pounds daily. Income of 20 to 30,000 annually in the best years. A significant contribution to maintenance costs that actually makes the numbers work. Ringo lives at Tittenhurst until 1988. 15 years. Much longer than John's brief tenure. During that time, he faces his own crises. Divorce from Maureen. Problems with alcohol that nearly kill him. Career ups and downs as solo success eludes him. But Tittenhurst gives him stability. A home base. A place that endures. In 1988, Ringo sells to an Arab sheikh for several £1,000,000. The actual amount is never disclosed. The sheikh closes Tittenhurst completely. No more commercial recording sessions. No more studio tours. No more access for anyone. The gates close permanently. Tittenhurst disappears from public view. It becomes myth rather than place. The sheikh invests millions in restoration. Engineers modernize systems invisible to the eye. Technicians install state-of-the-art climate control to preserve the building. Craftsmen restore Georgian details that time had damaged. The gardens are revived with subtle Middle Eastern influences. New plantings. Reorganized paths. The lake maintained perfectly. Why buy a property that drains millions annually? A property that demands constant attention? A property that can never generate return on investment? For history. For status. For magic. Tittenhurst isn't merely a mansion. It's the place where John Lennon recorded Imagine. It's cultural heritage made physical. Owning Tittenhurst is owning a piece of music history, a fragment of the 20th century preserved in stone and wood. And for that magic, some people will pay any price. Today, Tittenhurst Park remains private property, wrapped in mystery, fiercely protected by owners who value privacy above all. The property is currently estimated at more than £15 million, possibly 20, depending on market conditions, perhaps more. It's hard to value the irreplaceable, but maintaining it costs between £200,000 and £300,000 annually, perhaps more when major repairs arise. Perhaps it's here John learned that even paradise has a price, and sometimes that price is too high. That lesson is worth more than any song. Although the song, it must be admitted, is pretty good.